Welcome to Biz Wire. I'm Joseph Nordstrom in Beijing. Ever since Myanmar's military junta allowed elections in March 2011, Chinese business interest and influence have been on the wane. Myanmar's new president, Thein, is known to be concerned about the influence China has over its much smaller southern neighbor, and that extends to his country's role in providing resources to the energy-hungry giant. Soon after Thein came to power, his government began seeking warmer ties with Washington, a move analysts see as a bid to offset Beijing's influence. From an isolated totalitarian regime and virtual Chinese client state just 2 years ago, the country has thrown open its doors, and the excitement of change and reform is evident everywhere. Western sanctions have mostly been lifted, and global investors are rushing to position themselves for a market boasting 60 million customers and decades of infrastructure catch-up potential. At Myanmar's first ever World Economic Forum earlier this month, former generals in traditional Burmese dress rubbed shoulders with executives from Thailand, Vietnam, Europe, the U.S., and Japan, which was especially well represented by eager investors. The absence of a strong Chinese presence was all the more noticeable because of the way Burmese ministers and parliamentarians referred to their former comrades in Beijing, diplomatic in public, but more candid and scathing in private. The Financial Times reported that an advisor to a Burmese minister quipped that his country said thank you very much to the Chinese for their help and then asked them to leave. In fact, Chinese investment in Myanmar has fallen sharply over the past year amid strained relations, just as interest from other foreign investors has surged. In the capitals of China and Myanmar, there is recognition that China handled the bilateral relationship badly, thanks to a toxic mix of arrogance, neglect, and meddling by elements of China's People's Liberation Army, who remains highly influential in Myanmar and deeply involved in business ventures there. China was Myanmar's closest political and trading partner for several decades before 2011, when Myanmar, hit by sanctions from the West because of Myanmar's authoritarian policies, began a series of political and economic overhauls. Now, as Myanmar increasingly looks to the West, popular sentiment has been turning against China and its historically close ties with the former military junta. The negative sentiment, though, does not mean the reforming administration is turning its back on Beijing completely. For one thing, the new pipelines that will begin pumping Burmese gas in the next couple of months all lead to China, and Chinese companies have a big head start after many years of Western sanctions. Also, China still remains Myanmar's largest trading partner. Myanmar imported $175 million of Chinese goods in March, making up nearly a third of total imports for the month. Chinese investment, though, has fallen steeply from $20 billion 2 years ago to just $1.4 billion this past fiscal year. The Chinese telecommunications giant Huawei did just win a relatively small contract when it was chosen to work with the state-owned Myanmar Post and Telecommunications to further expand local mobile networks. Huawei will invest $34 million in the project, but has its sights set on better opportunities to come, as Myanmar currently has less than a 10% mobile phone penetration rate. As Myanmar's president, Thein, addressed the World Economic Forum, the word in the halls of the Chinese-built convention center was that he personally despises Beijing's influence over its smaller, poorer neighbor, so China has a lot of work to do to show it can act socially responsible and win back some goodwill before winning more lucrative resource contracts. You're watching Biz Wire on the Blue Ocean Network. Stay tuned for more in Economic Insight.